Deuteronomy chapter 1, New King James Version. The previous command to enter Canaan. These are the words which Moses spoke to all Israel on the side of the Jordan, in the wilderness, in the plain, opposite Saphah, between Paran, Tophel, Laban, Hazarath, and Dishab. It is 11-day journey from Horeb by way of Mount Seir to Kadesh Barnea. Now it has come to pass in the 40th year, in the 11th month, on the first day of the month, that Moses spoke to the children of Israel according to all that the Lord had given him as command to them, after he had killed Sihon, king of the Amorites, who dwelt in Heshbon, and Og, king of Bashan, who dwelt in Ashtaron, in Edrei, on the side of the Jordan, into the land of Moab. Moses began to explain the law, saying, The Lord our God has spoken to us in Horeb, saying, You have dwelt long enough at the mountain. Turn and take your journey, and go into the mountains of the Amorites, to all of the neighboring places, into the plain, in the mountains, and in the lowland, into the south, and into the sea coast of the land of the Canaanites, and Lebanon, as far as the great river Euphrates. See that I have set the land before you. Go in and possess the land which the Lord swore to your fathers, and Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to give to them and their descendants after them. Tribal leaders appointed. And I spoke to you at that time, saying, I alone am not able to bear you. To the Lord your God has multiplied you, and here you are today, as the stars of heaven have multiplied. May the Lord God of your fathers make you thousands times more numerous than you are, and bless you as he has promised you. How can I alone bear your promise, and your burdens and your complaints? Choose wisely understanding and knowledge, men from among your tribes, and I will make them heads over you. And you answered me and said, The thing which you have told us to do is good. So I took the head of your tribes, wise and knowledgeable men, and made them heads over you, leaders of thousands, leaders of hundreds, leaders of 50s, leaders of tens, and officers of your tribes. Then I have commanded your judges at that time, saying, Hear the case between your brethren, and judge righteously between a man and his brother, or the stranger who is within him, and you shall not show partiality in judgment. You shall hear the small as well as the great, and you shall not be afraid in any man's presence, for the judgment is good. The case that is too hard for you, bring to me, and I will hear it. And I commanded you at this time all the thing which you should do. Israel refused to enter the land. So we departed from Horeb and went through all the great and tribal wildernesses which you have saw on the way to the mountain of the Amorites, as the Lord our God has commanded us. Then we came to Kadesh Barnea, and I say to you, you have come to the mountains of the Amorites, which the Lord our God is given us. And look, the Lord your God has set the land before you. Go up and possess it, as the Lord God of your father has spoken to you. Do not fear or be discouraged, and everyone of you came near to me and said, "Let us send men before us, and let them search out the land for us, and bring back word to us on the way by which we should go up, and the cities into which we shall come." And the plain pleased me well, so that I took 12 of your men and one from each tribe, and they departed and went into the mountains, and came into the valley of Eshcol, and speeched and spies it out. They also took some of the fruit of the land in their hand, and brought it down to us, and they brought back word to us, saying, "It is a good land which the Lord our God has given us. Nevertheless, you would not go up, but rebel against the command of the Lord your God, and you complained in your tent, and said, Because the Lord hates us, he has brought us out of the land of Egypt to deliver us into the hand of the Amorites, to destroy us. Where can we go up? Our brethren have discouraged our hearts, saying, The people are greater and taller than we. The cities are great and fortified up to heaven. Moreover, we have seen the son of the Anakim there. Then I said to you, Do not be terrified or afraid of them. The Lord your God, who goes before you, he will fight for you according to all that he did for you in Egypt before your eyes, and in the wilderness, where you saw how the Lord your God carried you as a man carries his son in all the way that you went until you have come to this place. And yet for all that you did not believe the Lord your God, who went in the way before you to search out a place for you and pitch your tents, to show you the way you should go, in the fire by night and the cloud by day. The penalty for Israel's rebellion. And the Lord heard the sound of the words, and was angry, and took an oath, saying, Surely not one of these men of this evil generation shall see that good land of which I swore to give to your fathers, except Caleb the son of Joseph. He shall see it, and to him and his children I am giving them the land on which he has walked, because he wholly followed the Lord. The Lord was also angry with me for your sake, saying, Even you shall not go in there. Joshua the son of Nun, who stands before you, he shall go in there. Encourage him, for he shall cause Israel to inherit it. Moreover, your little ones and your children, who you say will be victims, who today have not knowledge of good and evil, and they shall go in there to them, and I will give it, and they shall possess it. But as for you, turn and take your journey into the wilderness by the way of the Red Sea. Then you answered and said to me, We have sinned against the Lord. We will go up and fight, just as the Lord our God has commanded us. And then every one of you had girded on his weapons and were ready to go up into the mountain. And the Lord said to me, Till then, do not go up, nor fight, for I am not among you, lest you be destroyed, lest you be defeated before your enemies. So I spoke to you, yet you would not listen, but rebel against the command of the Lord, and presumptuously went up into the mountain, and the Amorites who dwelt into the mountain came out against you, and caused you as bees do, and drove you back from Seir to Hormon. Then you returned and wept before the Lord, but the Lord would not listen to your voice, nor give ear to you. So you remained in Kadesh many days, according to the days that you have spent there. The desert years. Then we turned and journeyed into the wilderness of the way of the Red Sea, as the Lord spoke to me, and we had skirted Mount Seir for many days. And the Lord spoke to me, saying, You have skirted this mountain long enough. Turn northward, and commanded the people, saying, You are about to pass through the territory of the brethren, the descendants of Esau, Esau, who lives in Seir, and they will be afraid of you. Therefore, watch yourselves carefully, and do not meddle with them, for I will not give you any of their land, not such much as one footstep, because I have given Mount Seir to Esau as a possession. You shall buy food from them with the money, that you may eat, and you shall also buy water from them with money, that you may drink. For the Lord your God has blessed you in all the work of your hands, and he knows your treading through this great wilderness these 40 years, for the Lord your God has been with you, and you have lacked nothing. And when we pass beyond our brethren, the descendants of Esau, who dwell in Seir, away from the road of the plain, away from Elhath, the Ezron, Geban, or Geber, we turn and pass by way of the wilderness of Moab. Then the Lord said to me, Do not harass the Moab, nor contend with them in battle, for I will not give you any of their land as a possession, because I have given Ar to the descendants of the Lot as a possession. The Emim, that dwelt there in the time of past, and the people as great as numerous and tall as the Anakim. They were also regarded as giants, like the Anakim, but the Amorites call them Emim. The Amorites formerly dwelt in Seir, but the descendants of Esau disposed them and destroyed them from before them, and dwelt in their place, just as Israel did in the land of their possession, which the Lord gave them. Now rise and cross over the valley of Zered. So we have crossed over to the valley of the Zered, and the time we took to come from Kadesh Barnea until the crossing over the valley of the Zered was 38 years, until all the generation of the men of war was consumed from the midst of the camp, just as the Lord had shown to them. For indeed the hand of the Lord was against them to destroy them from the midst of the camp until they were consumed. So it was, when all the men of war had finally perished from among the people, that the Lord spoke to me, saying, the day you are to cross over to the air, the boundary of Moab, and when you have come near to the people of Ammon, do not harass them or meddle with them, for I will not give you any of their land of the people of Ammon as a possession, because I have given it to the descendants of Lot as possession. That was also regarded to the land of giants, and giants formerly dwelt there, but the Ammonites called them Zamaram, a people as great and numerous and tall as the Anakim. But the Lord destroyed them before them, and they dispossessed them and dwelt in their place, just as he had done for the descendants of Eshu, who dwelt in Seir, when he destroyed the Horites from before them, and disposed them and dwelt in their place, even to this day, in the Avium, who dwelt in villages as far as Gaza, the Capitorum, who have come from Capitor, destroyed them and dwelt in their place. Rise and take your journey and cross over to the river of Aaron. Look, and I have given it into your hand. Sihon, an Amorite, king of Heshbon, and his land, began to possess it and engage him in battle this day, and I will begin to put the dread and fear of you upon the nation under the whole heaven, who shall hear the report of you, and shall tremble and be in anguish before case of you. King of Sihon, defeated, and I have sent messengers from the wilderness of Kedamoth to Sihon, the king of Heshbon, and the word of peace, saying, let me pass through your land, and I will keep strictly to the road, and I will turn neither to the right nor to the left, and you shall sell me food for money that I might eat, and give me water for money that I might drink. Only let me pass through on foot, just as the descendants of Eshu, who had dwelt in the Seir, and the Modonites, who had dwelt in the air, did for me, until I crossed the Jordan of the land which the Lord our God has given us. But Sihon, king of Heshbon, would not let us pass through, for the land of your God hardened his spirit, and made his heart obstinate, that he might deliver him into your hand as it is this day. And the Lord said to me, see that I have begun to give Sihon and his land over to you. Begin to possess it, that you may inherit his land. Then Sihon and all of his people have come out against us to fight at Johaz, and the Lord our God has delivered him over to us, and so that we defeated him and his sons and all of his people. We took all of his cities at this time, and we utterly destroyed the men, women, and little ones. Of every city we lifted none remaining. We took only the livestock as plunder for ourselves, with the spoil of the cities which we have taken from Aroer, Aroer, which is on the bank of the river of Arnon, and from the cities that is in the Raven, as far as Gilded. There was not one city too strong for us, and the Lord our God delivered all to us. Only you did not go near the land of the people of the Ammon anywhere along the river Jobok, Jabbok, or the cities of the mountain of whatever or wherever the Lord our God has fortified us. Chapter 3. The King Og defeated. Then we turned and went up the road to Bashan, and Og, king of Bashan, came out against us, he and all of his people, to battle at Edrei. And the Lord said to me, do not fear him, for I have delivered him and all of his people and his land into your hand. You shall do to him as you did to Sihon, king of the Amorites, who had dwelt in Heshbon. So the Lord our God also delivered into our hands Og, king of the Bashan, with all the people, and we attacked him until he had no survivors remaining, and we took all of his cities at that time, and where was not a city which we did not take from them. 60 cities, all the regions of Argob, Argob, the kingdom of Og in Bashan, Bashan, and all of these cities were fortified with high walls, gates, and bars, besides a great many royal towns. And we utterly destroyed them, as we did to Sihon, king of the Heshbon, utterly destroyed the men, women, and children, every city, but all the livestock and the spoil of the cities we took as booty for ourselves. And at that time we took the land from the hand of the 2 kings of the Amorites, who were on our side in the Jordan, for the river Arnon and Mount Hermon. The Sidonians called Hermon Seir, and the Amorites called Seir Senir, and all the cities of the plains, all Gilgad and Bashan, as far as the Galka and Edrei, cities of the kingdom of Og and Bashan. For only Og, king of the Bashan, remained of the remnant of the giants. Indeed, his bedside was in iron bedstead, Bedstead. It is not in Rabban or Rahab, it's Rabbah, of the people of Ammon, Ammon, 9 cubits in length and 4 cubits in width, according to the standard cubit. The land east of the Jordan is divided, and the land which we have possessed at that time from Aroer, which is by the river Arnon, and half of the mountain of Gilgad, and the cities, and its cities I have given the Reubenites, Reubenites, and the Gideonites, the rest of the Gilgad, Gilead, and Bashan, the king of Og, and I have gave to half of the tribe of Manasseh all the regions of Arab, with the Bashan was called the land of the giants. Jar, the son of Manasseh, took all the regions of Arab as far as the border of the Jeshunites, Geshurites, and the Manassanites, Machathites, and called Bashan after his own name, Havoth, Havoth, the jar. To this day also I have given Gildan to Machir, and to the Reubenites and all the Gadites, and I have given from Gildan as far as the river Arnon, the middle of the river, as the border as far as the river Jabbok, is Jabbok, the border of the people of Ammon, Ammon, the plain also with the Jordan, as the border from Siddith, Chinereth, as far as the east side of the sea of the Arath, Arahah, the salted sea, below the spoils of Bethshan. Then I have commanded you at this time, saying, the Lord your God has given you this land to possess. All the men of valor shall cross over arm before your brethren, the children of Israel, but your wives, your little ones, and your livestock, I know that you have much livestock, shall stay in your cities, which I have given to you, until the Lord has given rest to your brethren as to you. And they also possess the land which the Lord your God is given them beyond the Jordan. Then each of you many return to his possession which I have given to you. And I have commanded Joshua at the time, saying, your eyes have seen all that the Lord your God has done to these two kings, so that will the Lord do to all the kingdoms through which you have possessed. You much not fear them, for the Lord your God himself fights for you. Moses forbidden they enter the land, and I have pleaded with the Lord at that time, saying, O Lord God, you have begun to show your servant your greatness and your mighty hand, for that God is there in heaven on the earth, who can do anything like your works and your mighty deeds. I pray, let me cross over to the sea and see the good land beyond the Jordan, those pleasant mountains in Lebanon. But the Lord was angry with me on your account, and would not listen to me. So the Lord said to me, enough of that. Speak no more to me of this matter. Go up to the top of the Pisgah, Pisgah, and lift your eyes towards the west and the north and the south and the east. Behold it with your eyes, for you shall not cross over to the Jordan, but command Joshua and encourage him and strengthen him, for he shall go over before this people, and he shall cause them to inherit the land which you will see. So we stand into the valley opposite Beth Peor, chapter 4. Moses commanded obedience. Now, O Israel, listen to the statutes and the judgments which I have teaching you to observe, that you may live and go into the possess the land which the Lord your God of your father is given to you, and you shall not add to the word which I have commanded you, nor take it from it, that you may keep the commandments of the Lord your God which I have commanded to you. Your eyes have seen what the Lord did at Baal Peor, Peor. For the Lord your God has destroyed from among you all the men whom followed Baal Peor of Peor. But you who held fast to the Lord your God are alive today, every one of you. Surely I have taught you statutes and judgments, just as the Lord my God, commanded me that you should act accordingly to them in the land which you go and possess. Therefore be careful to observe them, for this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the people, who will hear all these statutes and say, surely his great nation is wise and understanding people. For what great nation is therefore that has God so near to it, as the Lord our God is to us, for whatever reason we may call upon him, and that great nation is there that has such statutes and righteousness. Judgment as are in all this law with which I have set before you this day. Only take heed to yourself, and diligently keep yourself, lest you forget the thing your eyes have seen, and lest they depart from your heart all the days of your life, and teach them to your children and your grandchildren, especially concerning the day you should before the Lord your God in Horeb, when the Lord said to me, gather the people to me, and I will let them hear my words, that they may learn or fear me all the day they live unto the earth, and that they may teach their children. Then you have come near and stood at the foot of the mountain, and the mountain burned with fire into the midst of the heaven, and the darkness, cloud and thick darkness. And the Lord spoke to you only on the midst of the fire. You heard the sound of the words, but show no form. You only heard a voice. So he declared to you his covenant, which he commanded you to perform, the 10 Commandments, and he wrote them on the 2 tablets of stone. And the Lord commanded me at that time to teach you statutes and judgments, that you might observe them into the land which you cross over to possess. Beware of idolatry. Take careful heed to yourself, for you saw no former. Beware of idolatry. Take careful heed to yourself, for you saw no form when the Lord spoke to you at the Horeb out of the midst of the fire, lest you act corruptly and make yourselves a carved image in the form of any figure, in the likeness of male and female, the likeness of any animal that is on to the earth, or the likeness of any winged bird that flies in the air, the likeness of anything that creeps on the ground, and the likeness of any fish that is in the waters beneath the earth. And take heed lest you lift your eyes to heaven, and when you see the sun, the moon, and the stars, all the hosts of heaven, you feel driven to worship them and serve them, which the Lord your God has given to all the people under the whole heaven as an heritage. But the Lord has taken you and brought you out of the iron furnace, out of Egypt, to be his people and inheritance, as you are this day. Furthermore, the Lord was angry with me for your sake, and swore that I would not cross over to the Jordan, and that I would not enter the good land which the Lord your God is given to you as an inheritance. But I must die into this land, and I must not cross over to the Jordan, but you shall cross over and possess that good land. Take heed in yourselves, lest you forget the covenant of the Lord your God, which he made with you, and make for yourselves a carved image in the form of anything which the Lord your God has forbidden you. For the Lord your God is a consuming fire, a jealous God. Then you beget children and grandchildren, and have grown old into the land, and act corruptly, and make a carved image in the form of anything, and do evil in the sight of the Lord your God, to provoke him to anger. I have called heaven and earth to witness against you this day, that you will soon utterly perish, for the land which you have crossed over to the Jordan to possess, you will not prolong your days into it, but will be utterly destroyed, and the Lord will scatter you among the people, and you will be left few in number among the nations, where the Lord will drive you, and there you will serve God, the works of men, hands, wood and stone, which neither see nor hear, nor eat nor smell, but from there you will seek the Lord your God, and you will find him, and you will seek him with all your heart and with all your soul. Then you are in distress, and all of these things come upon you into the later days, when you turn into the Lord your God, and had obeyed his voice. From the Lord your God is a merciful God. He will not forsake you, nor destroy you, nor forget the covenant of your fathers, which he has sworn to them. For ask now concerning the day that passed, which were before you, since the day that God created man onto the earth, and asked from one end to heaven to another, whether any great thing like this has happened, or anything like it has been hard. Did any people ever hear the voice of God speaking out of the midst of the fire, as you have heard, and live? Or did God ever try to go and take for himself a nation from the midst of another nation, by trials, by signs, by wonders, by war, by a mighty hand and an outstretched arm, and by great terror, according to all that the Lord your God did for you in Egypt before your eyes? To you and his shown, that you might know that the Lord himself is God. There is none other besides him out of heaven. He have let you hear his voice, that he might instruct you. On earth he showed you his great fire, and you heard his words out of the midst of the fire. And because he had loved your fathers, therefore he chose their descendants after them, and he had brought you out of Egypt with his presence, with his mighty power, driving out from before you nations greater than mightier than you, to bring you in, to give you their land as an inheritance as it is this day. Therefore, now, this day, and considering it is your heart that the Lord himself is God in heaven above and onto the earth beneath. There is no other. You shall therefore keep his statutes and his commandments, which I commanded you today, that it may go well with you and your children after you, and that you may prolong your days in the land which the Lord your God has given you for all time. Cities of refuge east of the Jordan. Then Moses set apart 3 cities on the side of the Jordan towards the rising of the sun, that the manslayer might flee there who had killed his neighbor unintentionally, without having hated him in time past, and that by fleeing to one of these cities he might live. Bezer, B-E-Z-E-R, in the wilderness on the Plateau, Plateau, for the Reubenites, Ramoth in Gilead, from the Gadites, and Goldad in Bashan, from the Manassites. In introduction to God's law. Now this is the law which Moses set before the children of Israel. These are the testimonies, the statutes, and the judgments which Moses spoke to the children of Israel after they have come out of Egypt onto the side of the Jordan, into the valleys opposite beneath Peor, P-E-O-R, into the land of Sihon, S-I-H-O-N, king of the Amorites, who dwelt at Heshbon, H-E-S-H-B-O-N, whom Moses and the children of Israel defeated after they have come out of Egypt. And they took possession of his land and the land of Og, king of the Bashan, 2 kings as the Amorites, who were on to the side of the Jordan towards the rising of the sun, from Aroer, A-R-O-E-R, which is on the bank of the river of Arnon, even to the mountain of Sion, S-I-O-N, that is Hermon, H-E-R-M-O-N, and all the plain on the east side of the Jordan, as far as the sea of the Arabah, A-R-A-B-A-H, below the slopes of Pishag, P-I-S-G-A-H. The 10 Commandments reviewed. Chapter 5. And Moses called all of Israel and said to them, Hear, O Israel, and statute and the judgments which I have spoken into your hearing today, that you may learn them and be careful to observe them. The Lord our God made a covenant with us in Horeb. The Lord did not make this covenant with our fathers, but with us, those who are here today, and all of us who are alive. The Lord take with you face to face. The Lord talk to you face to face on this mountain from the midst of the fire, and I stood between the Lord and you at this time to declare to you the words of the Lord, for you were afraid because of the fire, and you did not go up to the mountain. He said, I am the Lord your God, who have brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourselves a carved image, any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the waters underneath the earth. You shall not bow down to them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquities of the fathers upon the children, to the third and fourth generations of those who hate me, but showing mercy to thousands, to those who love me and keep my commandments. You shall not take the name your Lord God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless who takes his name in vain. Observe the Sabbath day, and to keep it holy, as the Lord your God has commanded you. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but on the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord your God. In it you shall do no work, you nor your sons, nor your daughters, nor your male servants, nor your female servants, nor your ox, nor your donkey, nor of your cattle, nor of your strangers who is within your gates. You, male servants, and your female servants, may rest as well as you, as remembering that you were a slave into the land of Egypt, and the Lord your God has brought you out from there by a mighty hand and by a outstretched arm. Therefore, the Lord your God hath commanded you to keep the Sabbath day. Honor your father and your mother, as the Lord your God has commanded you, that your days may be long, and that it may be well with you, into the land which the Lord your God is given to you. You shall not murder, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal, you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor, you shall not covet your neighbor's wife, and you shall not desire your neighbor's house, his field, his male servants, his female servants, his ox, his donkey, anything that is your neighbor's. This word the Lord spoke to you all your assembly in the mountain, from the midst of the fire, the clouds, and of the thick darkness, with a loud voice, and he added no more. And he wrote them on the tablets of the stones and given them to me, the people afraid of God's presence. So it was, when you hear the voice from the midst of the darkness. Wow. The mountain was burning with fire, that you come near to me, and all the heads of your tribes and all your elders, and have said, surely the Lord our God has shown us his glory and his greatness, and he have heard his voice. From the midst of the fire we have seen this day the great we have seen this day that God speaks with man, yet he still lives. Now therefore, why should we die? For this great fire consumes us. If we hear the voice of the Lord our God any more, then we shall die. For who is there for all the flesh who has heard the voice of the living God speaking from the midst of the fire, as we have, and lived? You go near and hear all that the Lord our God may say, and tell us all that the Lord our God says to you, and we will hear and do it. Then the Lord heard the voice of the words. Then the Lord heard the voice of your words. Then you spoke to me. And then the Lord said to me, I have heard the voice of the words of the people which they have spoken to you. Then they are right in all that they have spoken. Oh, that they have much a heart in them. that they would fear me and always keep my commandments, that it might be well with them and with their children forever. Go and say to them, return to your tents. But as for you, stand here by me, and I will speak to you all the commandments, the statutes, and the judgments which you shall teach them, that they may observe them in the land which I am giving them to possess. Therefore you shall be careful to do as the Lord your God has commanded you. You shall not turn aside to the right hand or to the left. You shall walk in all the ways which the Lord your God has commanded you, that you may live and that it may be well with you, and that you may prolong your days in the land which you shall possess. The greatest commandment. The greatest commandment. Now this is the commandment, and these are the statutes of judgment, which the Lord your God has given command to teach you, that you may observe them in the land which you are crossing over to possess, that you may fear the Lord your God, to keep all of his statutes and his commandments which I have commanded to you and your sons and your grandsons, and all the days of your life, and that your days may be prolonged. Therefore, hear, O Israel, and be careful to observe it, that it may be well with you, and that it may be multiplied greatly, as the Lord God of your fathers has promised you, a land flowing with milk and honey. Hear, O Israel, that the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. And these words which I have commanded to you shall be in your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children, and shall talk of them then you sit in your house, then you walk by the way, then you lie down, and when you rise up, you shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be a frontlets, frontlets, between your eyes. You shall write them on the doorpost of your heart and on your gates. Caution against disobedience. So it shall be when the Lord your God brings you into the land of which he swore to your fathers, to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to give you large and beautiful cities which you did not build, house full of all good things which you did not fill, hewn out wells which you did not dig, vineyards and olive trees which you did not plant. Then you have eaten and are full. Then you bear, lest you forget the Lord, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, from the house of bondage. You shall fear the Lord your God, and serve him, and shall take oath in his name. You shall not go after other gods, the God of the people who are all around you. For the Lord your God is a jealous God among you, lest the anger of the Lord your God be aroused against you and destroy you from the face of the earth. You shall not tempt the Lord your God, as you tempt him in Manasseh, Massah. You shall diligently keep the commandments of the Lord your God, his testimonies and his statutes which he has commanded you, And you shall do what is right, and God is the sight of the Lord. And you shall do what is right, and good is the sight of the Lord, that it may be well with you, and that you may go in and possess the good land of which the Lord swore to your fathers, to cast out your enemies from before you, as the Lord has spoken. Then your sons ask you in a time to come, saying, what is the meaning of the testimonies of statutes and the judgments which the Lord our God has commanded you? Then you shall say to your son, we were slaves of Pharaoh in Egypt, and the Lord brought us out to Egypt with a mighty hand, and the Lord showed signs and wonders before our eyes, great and serve against Egypt, Pharaoh, and all of the household. Then he have brought us out from there, that he might bring us in, to give us the land of which he has sworn to our fathers. And the Lord commanded us to observe all this statute, to fear the Lord our God for our good ways, always, that he might preserve us alive as it is this day. Then it will be righteousness for us if we are careful to observe all these commandments before the Lord our God, as he has commanded us. A chosen people. Chapter 7. Then the Lord our God brings you into the land which you go to possess, and has cast out many nations before you, the Hittites and the Jebusites, and the Amorites and the Canaanites and the Perizzites, and all the Hivites and all the Jebusites, 7 nations greater than, mightier than you. And when the Lord your God delivers them over to you, you shall conquer them and utterly destroy them. You shall make no covenant with them, nor show mercy to them, nor shall you make marriages with them. You shall not give your daughters to their sons, nor take their daughters for your sons, for they will turn your sons away from following me to serve other gods. So the anger of the Lord will be aroused against you and destroy you suddenly. But thus you shall deal with them. You shall destroy their altars and break down their sacred pillars, and cut down their wooden images, and burn their carving images with fire. For you are a holy people to the Lord your God. The Lord your God has chosen you to be a people for himself, a special treasure above all the peoples on the faces of the earth. The Lord did not set the love on you, nor choose you, because you were more in number than any other people, for you were the least of all the people. But because the Lord loves you, and because he would keep the oath which he swore to your fathers, the Lord has brought you out with a mighty hand, and remembered you from the house of bondage, from the hand of Pharaoh's king of Egypt. Therefore, know that the Lord your God, he is God, the faithful God, who keeps covenant and mercy for thousands of generations with those who love him and keep his commandments. And he repays those who hate him to their face. He pays those who hate him to their face. To destroy them, he will not be slack. He will not be slack with him who hates him. He will repay him to his face. Therefore you shall keep the commandment, the statute, and the judgments which I have commanded to you to observe them. Bless of the obedience. Blessed of the obedience, then it shall come to pass, because you listened these judgments and kept and do them, that the Lord your God will keep with you the covenant and the mercy which he swore to your fathers, and he will love you and bless you and multiply you, and he will also bless the fruit of your womb, and the fruit of your land, and your grain, and your new wine, and your oil, the increase of your cattle, and of offspring of your flock, in the land of which he swore to your fathers to give to you. You shall be blessed above all people. There shall not be a male or a female barren among you, or among your livestock, and the Lord will take away from you all the sickness, and will afflict you with none of the tribal diseases of Egypt which you have known, but will lay them on all those who hate you. Also you shall destroy all the people whom the Lord your God delivered over to you. Your eyes shall have no pity on them, nor shall you serve their gods, for that will be a snare to you. If you should say in your heart, these nations are greater than I, how can I dispose them? You shall not be afraid of them, but you shall remember well that the Lord your God did to Pharaoh and to Egypt the great trials which your eyes saw, and the signs of the wonders, the mighty hand and of the outstretched arm, by which the Lord your God brought out to you. By which the Lord your God brought you out. So shall the Lord your God do to you. All the people of whom you are afraid, moreover the Lord your God will send the hornet among them, until those who are left, who hide themselves from you, are destroyed. You shall not be terrified of them, for the Lord your God, the great and the awesome God, is among you, and the Lord your God will drive out those nations before you little by little. You will be unable to destroy them at once, lest the beasts of the field become too numerous for you. But the Lord your God will deliver them over to you, and will inflict defeat upon them until they are destroyed, and he will deliver their kingdoms into your hand, and you will be destroyed, and you will destroy their name from under heaven. No one shall be able to stand against you until you have destroyed them. You shall burn the carved images of their gods with fire. You shall not covet the silver or the gold that is on them, nor take it for yourselves, lest you be snared by it, for it is an abomination to you. the Lord your God, nor shall you bring an abomination into your house, lest you be doomed to destroy. Let it like it. You shall utterly destroy it and utterly abhor it, for it is an accursed thing. Chapter 8. Remember the Lord your God, every commandment which I have commanded to you. You must be careful to observe, that you may live and multiply and go in and possess the land of which the Lord swore to your fathers, and you shall remember that the Lord your God led you all the way these 40 years in the wilderness to humble you and test you, to know that was in your heart, whether you would keep his commandment or not. So he humbled you, allowed you to hunger, and feed you with manna, which you did not know, nor did your fathers know, that he might make you know that man shall not live by bread alone, but man lives by every word that proceeds from the mouth of the Lord. Your garments did not wear out on you, nor did your foot swell these 40 years. You shall know in your heart that as a man chastens his son, so the Lord your God chastens you. Therefore you shall keep the commandments of the Lord your God, to walk in his ways, and to fear him. From the Lord your God is bringing you into a good land, a land of brooks of water, for fountains and springs, the flowing out of valleys and hills, a land of wheat and barley, of vines and fig trees, of pomegranates, and a land of olive oil and honey, a land in which you will eat bread without scarcity, in which you will lack nothing, a land whose stones are iron, and out of whose hill you can dig copper. Then you have eaten and are full. Then you shall bless the Lord your God for the good land which he has given to you. Beware that you do not forget the Lord your God by his keeping his commandments and his judgments and his statutes which I commanded you today, lest then you have eaten and are full, and have built beautiful houses and dwelt in them, and then your herbs and your flocks multiply, and your silver and your golds are multiplied, and all that you have in multiplied. Then your heart is lifted up, and you forget the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, from the house of bondage, who have laid you and brought you in great and terrible wilderness. Tribal, who laid you and brought you great and tribal wilderness, in which you fearly sepence. Why am I not reading this right? Okay, I'm gonna go back. Number 11. Beware that you do not forget the Lord your God by not keeping his commandments, his judgments, and his statutes, which I have commanded to you today, lest when you have eaten and you are full, and have built beautiful houses and dwelt in them, and when you when your herds and your flocks multiply, and your silver and your gold multiply, and all that you have is multiplied, then your heart is lifted up, and you forget the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, from the house of bondage, who led you through the great and terrible wilderness, terrible, terrible, wilderness, in which where fiery serpents and scorpions have thrust, land where there is no water, who brought water from you out of the flintly rock, who feed you in the wilderness with manna, which your fathers did not know, that he might humble you, and that he might test you to do you good in the end. Then you say in your heart, my power and the might of my hand have gained me this wealth. And you shall remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives your power to give wrath, that he may establish his covenant, which he swore to your fathers, as it is this day. Then it shall be, if you by any means forget the Lord your God, and follow other gods, and serve them, and worship them, I testify against you this day that you shall surely perish, as the nations which the Lord destroyed before you, so you shall perish, because you would not be obedient to the voice of the Lord your God. Chapter 9. Chapter 9. Israel rebellion reviewed. Hear, O Israel, you are a cross over the Jordan today, and go into the dispossession. Hear, O Israel, you are a cross over the Jordan today, and go in to dispossess, dispossess, the nation greater and mightier than yourselves, cities great and fortified, up to heaven, a people great and tall, the descendants, descendants of the Anakim, Anakim, who you know, and of whom you heard is said, who can stand before the descendants of the Anak? ? Therefore, understand today that the Lord your God is he who goes over before you. As a consumed fire, he will destroy them and bring them down before you. So you shall drive them out and destroy them quickly, as the Lord has said to you. Do not think in your heart, after the Lord your God has casted them out before you, saying, because of the righteousness of the Lord has brought me in its possess is possess this land. but it is because of the wickedness of these nations that the Lord is driving them out before you. It is not because of the righteousness of the uprightness of your heart that you go in and possess their land, but because of the wickedness of these nations that the Lord your God drives them out from before you. Where is it? And that he may fulfill the word which the Lord swore to your fathers of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Therefore understand that the Lord your God is not giving you this good land to possess because of your righteousness, for you are a stiff-necked people. Remember, do not forget how you provoked the Lord your God to wrath in the wilderness from the day that you will depart from the land of Egypt until you have come to this place, and you have been rebellious against the Lord. Also, his Horeb, you provoked the Lord to wrath, so that the Lord was angry enough with you to have destroyed you. Then I went up into the mountain to receive the tablets of the stone, the tablets of the covenant which the Lord made with you. Then I stayed on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights, and I neither ate bread nor drank water. Then the Lord delivered to me 2 tablets of stone, written with the finger of God, and on them were all the words which the Lord had spoken to you onto the mountain, from the midst of the fire into the day of the assembly. And it had come to pass at the end of the 45 days and the 40 nights that the Lord gave me the 2 tablets of stone, the tablets of the covenant. Then the Lord said to me, arise and go down quickly from there, for your people whom you have brought out to Egypt have acted corruptly. They have quickly turned aside from the way which I have commanded them. They have made themselves a molded image. Furthermore, the Lord spoke to me, saying, I have seen the people, and indeed they are stiff-necked people. Let me alone, that I may destroy them and blot out their name from under heaven. And I will make for you a nation mightier and greater than they. So I have turned and came down from the mountain, and the mountain have burned with fire, and the 2 tablets of the covenant were in the 2 hands. They were in my 2 hands, and I looked, and behold, you have sinned against the Lord. Your God had made for yourselves a molded calf, and you have turned aside quickly from the way which the Lord had commanded you. Then I took the 2 tablets and threw them out on with my 2 hands, and broke them before your eyes. And I felt down before the Lord as at first 40 days and 40 nights. I neither ate bread nor drank water because of all your sin, which you have commanded in doing wickedly in the sight of the Lord, to provoke him to anger. For I was afraid of the anger and hot displeasure with which the Lord had anger with you to destroy you, but the Lord listened to me at that time also. And the Lord was very angry with Aaron and would have destroyed him, so I prayed for Aaron also at that same time. Then I took your sin, the calf which you had made, and burned it with fire, and cursed it, and ground it very small until it was as fine as dust. Then I threw it dust into the brook that descended from the mountain. Also at Tabrath, Manasseh, and Korath, and Kathion, Hatanav, Hattavaah, I provoked the Lord of wrath likewise. Then the Lord sent you from Kadesh Barnea, saying, Go up and possess the land which I have given to you. Then you rebel against the commandment of the Lord your God, and you did not believe him, nor obey his voice. You have been rebellious against the Lord from the day which I knew you. Thus I prostrated, prostrated myself before the Lord 40 days and 40 nights, and I kept prostrating myself, because the Lord had said he would destroy you. Therefore I prayed to the Lord and said, O Lord God, do not destroy your people and your inheritance, whom you have redeemed through your greatness, whom you have brought out from Egypt with a mighty hand. Remember your servants Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Do not look at the stubbornness of this people, or on their wickedness or their sin, lest the land from which you brought us should say, because the Lord has not able to bring them to the land which he promised them, and because he hated them, he has brought them out to kill them into the wilderness. Yet they are your people and your inheritance, whom you have brought out into your mightier power, and by your outstretched arms. Chapter 10. The second pair of tablets. At this time the Lord said to me, Hew, H-E-W, for yourself 2 tablets of stone, 2 tablets of stone like the first, and come up to me on the mountain, and make for yourselves an ark of wood. And I will write on the tablets the words that were on the first tablets which you broke, and you shall put them in the ark. So I made an ark of acacia wood, hew 2 tablets of stone like the first, and went up to the mountain, having the 2 tablets into the hand. And he had wrote on the tablets according to the first written writings of the 10 commandments which the Lord had spoken to you in the mountain from the midst of the fire unto the day of the Ashim, assembly of the Lord, given them to me. Then I turned and came down from the mountain. Then